To every girl, every woman, every soul who's doubted their worth, questioned their power, or dimmed their light, this is your awakening. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be you. Unfiltered, unafraid, and undeniably unforgettable. And if the world still doesn't get it, look them in the eye and say, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be legendary. And in a world that trains us, especially women, to constantly soften, explain, and excuse ourselves, saying no becomes a revolutionary act of self-respect. You don't owe everyone access to your energy. You don't have to agree to every dinner, every favor, every conversation, every demand. You don't have to drain yourself just to be liked. And here's the hard truth. The more you explain your no, the more you're inviting others to negotiate it. You leave the door open for guilt, for manipulation, for emotional tug-of-war. But a confident no, set with calm certainty, shuts the door. It teaches people where your boundaries begin. Think about this. Someone invites you to a party. You're tired. Your soul is craving silence, not socializing. But you feel obligated. So you respond, I'm sorry, I have some things going on, I'm really busy. Maybe next time. You over-explain. You over-apologize. And still they push, oh, come on, just for a bit. And suddenly you're compromising your peace. Now flip the scene. They invite you and you respond, no thank you. Full stop. No guilt. No need to shrink. That's power. Because you're no longer seeking approval. You're protecting your alignment. Let's say your coworker asks you to take on more work. Again, your plate is full. You're already drowning. But because you fear being seen as difficult or unhelpful, you start justifying. I'm actually working on 3 other projects right now and I have this deadline, and before you finish, they're already pressuring you to just do this one thing. But when you simply say, I'm not available to take this on, you eliminate the space for guilt to grow. That's not cold, that's clear. Saying no without explaining is not about building walls, it's about building standards. It's about understanding that your time, energy, and emotions are not community property. You have a right to protect them. Think about your phone battery. When it's low, you plug it in, no questions asked. You don't run it to 0 to please someone else. Why treat your soul any different? Imagine being in a relationship where your partner asks for something that violates your boundaries. Maybe they want constant access to your time, your space, your phone. And when you say no, they say, why not? Don't you love me? That's the moment you stand firm. That's the moment you say, I said no. Not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself enough to not bend where you break. That moment, that's when you take your power back. Even in small, daily decisions, when your friend wants to borrow something personal, when your family expects you to do what you've always done, when society tells you what you should be doing, you are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to not explain that choice. Because behind every yes you force, there's a little piece of you shrinking. And behind every strong no, there's a version of you growing. Rooted, clear, whole. You're not here to be convenient. You're here to be complete. Let your no be enough, just like your yes is. The world may not always understand your boundaries, but they will respect the strength behind them. Because when you say no without explaining, you're not closing doors. You're finally opening the one that leads to your power. Fall, mess up. Stumble. Let the world see it. Let them talk. Let them laugh if they want to. Because when you fail loudly, you give yourself the permission to rise even louder. Not in silence, not hidden in shame, but bold, raw, brave. That's the kind of failure that forges greatness. That's the kind of failure that makes legends. You see, we've been trained to fear failure, like it's a stain that can't be washed off, like it's the end of the story. But it's not. It's just the first messy chapter of the part that gets good. Real good. When you fail quietly, you stay stuck, you hide, you fake perfection. But when you fail loudly, you own it. You learn faster, you bounce back stronger. You say to the world, yeah, I fell, but watch how I rise. Think of a singer missing the note in front of thousands. The whole stadium hears it. There's a gasp, maybe even some mocking. But then they take a breath and hit the next note so powerfully that it shakes the entire arena. That's what it means to rise louder. You don't bury the fall. You use it as your launch pad. Or imagine a student who fails an exam she studied weeks for. Everyone else moves on, whispers behind her back, doubts her ability. But she doesn't hide in the corner. She walks up to the professor, asks for feedback, rewrites her notes, and retakes the test. This time, she doesn't just pass, she aces it. And every person who saw her fall is now clapping, because she didn't let the embarrassment kill her ambition. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the price of admission. It's the proof that you had the courage to try. You can't break records without first breaking down. You can't fly without first falling flat. And when you fail loudly, you give others permission to be human too. To try, to fall, to grow. In the business world, think of the entrepreneur who launches a startup and loses everything. Investors walk away. Friends doubt her. Her name trends for the wrong reasons. But instead of disappearing, she writes a post. She talks about what she learned, where she went wrong, and how she's building again. That's loud, that's real. That's how trust is built. Not by pretending to be perfect, but by proving you're resilient. Even in relationships, you give your heart, you trust deeply, and it doesn't work out. Maybe they left, maybe they lied. You feel broken, humiliated. People say, I told you so. But instead of shrinking, you show up. You heal in the open. You laugh again. You love again. You rise. Louder than the heartbreak. And suddenly, your pain becomes your power. Not something to hide, but something that inspires. Because here's the truth. Silence protects your ego, but loudness builds your legacy. Failing loudly doesn't mean being dramatic. It means saying, yes, I lost, but I'm not done. And the louder you rise, the more unstoppable you become. People remember how you rise, not how you fell. So don't whisper your way through the lessons. Don't let embarrassment rob you of evolution. Let the world watch your rebuild. Let them witness the rise. Because when you fail loudly, you don't just recover. You awaken the fire within. The kind that says, this was not the end. This was the ignition. You're not meant to be understood by everyone. And that's the point. Life isn't about fitting in. It's about finding those rare souls who see you. The ones who don't just clap when you win, but who hold your hand when you're falling apart. The ones who don't need you to shrink to be loved, but who love you more every time you expand. Surrounding yourself with people who see you is not a luxury. It's a necessity for self-confidence, self-worth, and survival in a world that's constantly trying to dim your light. You know that feeling? When someone gets you without you having to explain, when they look at your chaos and still choose to stay, that's the kind of energy you need in your corner. People who see beyond the highlight reel, beyond the polished smiles and into your soul. People who can tell when your I'm fine really means I'm drowning. These are not just friends. They're soul mirrors. Think about the artist who paints with wild colors and bold strokes, pouring her heart onto the canvas. The world walks by, criticizes, misunderstands, scrolls past. But then one person stops. They look closer. They feel the pain. the story, the courage in that chaos. They don't just see the painting, they see her. And suddenly, she doesn't feel alone anymore. That one person is worth more than 1,000 who only applaud when it's trendy too. In the office, you're constantly performing, achieving, hustling. Everyone loves your results, but no one sees the late nights, the anxiety, the moments when you questioned your worth. But then there's that one colleague who says, "You don't have to prove anything to me. I already see how hard you're trying." And in that moment, your walls come down. Because finally someone values your effort, not just your output. Or maybe it's your family, where expectations are tight and appearances matter. You're the black sheep, the dreamer, the rebel. You're constantly asked, why can't you just be like them? But one day you meet someone who says, your wild heart is beautiful. Don't ever tame it. And suddenly you realize you were never the problem. You were just around people who never saw your magic.